Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. And when I got thrown out and we went to court and had this big trial, 7-week trial, they said that I paid too much. And maybe I did, okay? But not because I put money in my pocket or anything. In one of those assets that we bought, a broker was involved. And he said that Mr. Peña paid as a buyer, or not Peña, the company paid as a buyer, and I also collected a fee from the seller. So the jury got pissed off at him because it doesn't sound right when he double dipped. It was legal, but it just didn't sound right. And so that's probably one of the reasons I won the trial. It's the jury sided with me. But you'll have no problem. I've done it 20 times in the Netherlands. Even the dumb part of the Netherlands, down there, where they call it the dumb part in the southeast. Is it the southeast corner? Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yes, sir.
So, do you offer the broker exactly the same percentage that the owner is paying him, or you negotiate?
Well, no, I do. But brokers are mostly crooks. They may ask you for more, and they say no. This is a good thing. You're getting paid twice as much. So I wouldn't be looking to give forcing them out.
And then the second payment, it's between them and the owner.
You have nothing to do with that.
All right, and that has to be in writing as well because they have a contract, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. And I mean, but you will blow the socks off the broker. I mean, he will look at you like, all my birthdays came at once here. The first initial thought, something's not right. When you're down in Oklahoma and Texas and Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee, down there where there's supposed to be Southern gentlemen and all that horse shit, they look at you. I mean, first they say, well, this guy's not right in the head, but let's take advantage of him as much as we can. That's the first thought that goes through their head. But when they run through the numbers, and they realize that on a $10 million deal that they were going to get, 10%, $1 million, and now they're going to get $2 million, it doesn't take them too long to come to your side of the table. But then you got to pay them. I've had some of you kids that's just a big chick fuck. Then they go to court, but then you pay them. And you pay them before the lawyers and the accountants. Now, you may not pay them the whole fee first, but if you owe the guy $300,000, we're going to take $150,000 out of the working capital, pay you right away at closing. That'll get his attention right quick, as they say. Because, again, money talks and bullshit walks. And I'm not making fun of these. These numbers are minuscule on the stuff that I work on now. But to you, $150,000 is, better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. I used to say, back in the 90s, Sally has lost in fur coats and jewelry at airports more net worth than all the personal development gurus on the planet have. And that wasn't much of an exaggeration. Because back in the 90s, these guys didn't have a pot to piss in. And some of them have accumulated some wealth. But, and I mean, well, I don't like to call it out of the box, because everybody says that's out of the box thinking. Well, this is fucking off the hemisphere thinking. And it's legal. It's absolutely legal. We had a oil broker here 4 or 5 seminars ago. A landman, as he used to be called. There's no lower form of life than a landman. He's the guy that goes and lies to the old widow farmer, farmer about they want to lease your mineral rights. And all kinds of lies. One, that mineral rights have a time limit, which is bullshit. They're in perpetuity. All kind of shit. And the old 85, 90-year-old, 108-year-old woman, just in the paper today, a guy in Florida went to jail from stealing money from her trust that he managed for 15, 20 years. Park City, Florida, I think. She's 108. Was she little cute little old lady sitting there? I'd like to know how she got all that money. But anyway, 108. But they put the guy in jail. Normally, they just skip free. But fortunately, it wasn't a QLA bot. So that's when I look at these things, I want to see if I trained this kid, you know. But there was a landman. He was a landman. And I mean, there's no lower form in life. They say about landmen, the average landman would fuck a snake if he held its head still. That's a landman. And so, but when I told him about both sides paying, I mean, I thought he died and went to heaven because he automatically put it in his business. And he says, God almighty. You know, I heard of you 10 years. I should have come here 10 years ago. I hear that all the time. But yeah, it's legal. It's absolutely legitimate. And it will increase your deal flow like crazy. It will increase your deal flow. And when you're making the presentation, it's just matter of fact. You're not doing them anything special. It's not, you know, just picking them. But it works. Any question about that portion? Now, you're not having this conversation saying you're going to pay the broker in that that first or second phone call. Now, and I told you, some of the kids tell them all this stuff, and then the seller decides not to do it and do it himself. There's intergalactic truth, there's intercontinental truth, there's local truth, and then there's our truth. And you're not doing anything immoral, not sharing your future thoughts of what you're going to do with this deal. As long as you're not fucking them out of anything. But some of the kids, because they're really, we had a 16-year-old teenager a few years ago, just told them all, then the guy decided not to do it and did it himself. And the little 16-year-old kid was heartbroken, Followed all the steps, and then got hit in the head. And that's where the kids, when I talk about keeping them on the rails, it's not just drugs and sex and shit. I mean, they say naive things because they don't know enough about life to go through all the permutations of all the ugliness can happen. Of course, then the parents blame me and fuck, went on and on. Somebody's hand was up. Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Peña, so I have another question. If we are doing, let's say, the 60-40, we're telling the seller for him that we're going to buy him full price. They don't want to do the seller financing, then we offer them a little bit more, so they do seller finance. It is a sale. They will understand, it's going to be written that instead of buying for $1 million, we're buying for $1.2 million, and we're keeping that cash. Or they are also owners of that 40% of that price.
It depends on the deal. It depends on what you negotiate. But another thing that's important is, and we'll talk more about it the last day, but let's say the 60-40 doesn't work for whatever reason. We'll give you 1% of the holding company. Meaning the holding company that you're buying all this shit with. So they have 1% of the big dream instead of 1%, an additional 1% of the big dream, in addition to the 40% that they're keeping of the local dream. And we had guys that by the time they did a strategic exit, they had 17 or 18% they had not given away. It was part of the purchase price for the assets. And then, of course, but you're not misleading them. All these deals aren't going to lead to an IPO. All these deals will lead to an exit. Some of the sellers, if you really sell them right and they really believe in you and they believe in the dream team, they'll want to, put attach their rocket to you. So when you exit, they exit. Those are all good problems. We've seen everything in between. We've seen, and now in the last couple of years, we've had an inordinate amount of exits as some of them we've explained, and we're going to explain more during the week. There's another question about, yes, sir, in the back.
What type of pushback do you normally get when you request a tax returns?
Well, I mean, it's no different than the bank. Bank wants your tax returns. So we're, we're not a financial fiduciary in that sense. But if they want to sell the goddamn property, the business, I want to see the tax returns. Now, in some instances, because of Corona, they, as I alluded to 20, 30 minutes ago, they will have had an extension. And some of the money, not all the money, but some of the money that was given out by the government, you got to pay back. And so they, giving them the benefit of the doubt, they fudge or they forget or they put the kind of money they got isn't the kind of money that they got. They got money you got to pay back, and they make it sound as that free money. And so you've got to ascertain, which kind of money it is. Is it the payback money? And some of the kids, unfortunately, they're in such a hurry, pressured to close a deal that, they either forgot, they skipped. It's like the Viking bitch said yesterday, I forgot, and so I didn't do that. And there's a lot of information to assimilate here. I understand that. But the sooner you put your dream team together, they're going to know, except for a couple of the, paying the broker twice, nobody will ever have done. I have not lived long enough to have another board member ever have done that. But after they chew it around and throw it over, they all say it's a fucking genius idea. But they won't instantly say it's a genius. They're going to think something's not right. And then after you've done it 5 or 10 times, fuck. Then they think back upon their own careers, what they coulda, woulda, shoulda. Another thing, and again, I told you at the beginning, where's the fucking money coming from? Where's the equity coming from? Who's got skin? I mean, that's the first hurdle. And once you convince the chairman of that, then the other guys and gals on the board will give you more benefit of the doubt. Well, if they convince the old guy, I mean, fuck. Because a lot of them won't know the right kind of questions to ask. It'll be so foreign to them. No money. And again, part of the picture, you're going to get this in the template, interested for your time, your expertise, not your money, sir, or ma'am. And most people that are pitching them on LinkedIn, other than QLA guys and gals, are looking for money from them. Now, what do you do when the CFO or the chairman or whoever on the board wants to put in money? Well, no, you respectfully say no. But I said there'll be a time, and there will be a time, believe me, that you come up short between when you're not doing a 100% seller finance deal, and it's a dynamite deal. It's got all the shit that you want. And I did a deal like they had a fucking yacht and had this, had another plan, and so I fudged my benchmarks a little because we had to have that fucking deal. Okay, we had executives in the company coming to me. God, that Saber line would be great to go skiing. Fine, I understand all this. I understand this. They said, "Oh God, that boat! I can just see you up there on the captain's helm, Mr. Peña." And bullshit, and bullshit. We had a guy's daughter, 2 daughters come. Uncle Dan, I'm not the fucking uncle. Uncle Dan, and they bring a picture. How'd you get a picture of that? Oh, we found it in the company library. Bullshit. The father gave it to him. Anyway, oh, that'd be beautiful. Anyway, so occasionally I softened up. But when you're paying, there's going to be a deal that $100,000 short, $500,000 short, whatever, and you got to have it. I mean, you'll go to hell if you don't have it, and you pay. You just do. I'm just telling you. I've succumbed myself, and I'm as tough as they get. But we're supposed to if you're not having fun doing this, the first deal is not going to be so much fun because you're going to put a lot of pressure on yourself. But if you're not having fun doing this shit, and that's what I really think when the people say they want $1 billion and they stop at 200 million or whatever, because it's worn them down physically. Their gene pool wasn't as strong as they thought. And so they just say, this is enough. But your board, once you've done one of these, and there's no problems, of course, then it's running them. We're going to spend tomorrow talking about running these fuckers, which is a hemorrhoid at best. I had a hemorrhoid a number of years ago, and that's exactly what it is to run these fuckers things, having a hemorrhoid. Yeah. And then I had the hemorrhoid cut out, and boy, that feels wonderful. But it still doesn't feel wonderful running these fucking businesses. So that's where the comparison ended. Yes, sir, in the back.
So on a 60-40 deal, obviously you defer everything down the line.
By the way, there was only 19 people killed in Chicago over the weekend. What the hell happened?
Just for the record.
Because you're here?
For the record, I live in Northwest Indiana. It's a suburb of.
For the record. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You defer everything down the line, no payments outright.
As much as you can. You always want as much of interest payments and the principal payments to pay down the lump sum moved off as far as you can. Remember, as the pig fucker said, and I learned from the Onassis people, you name the price and I'll name the terms. Okay, it's not because I'm doing a present value of money and things like that, but fine. You want $5 million and it's only worth $2 million. I'll give you $6 million over 15 years. Of course, he wanted the money today. Over 15 years. You got it. Let's shake on it. I've closed a lot of deals that way.
So you do the deal and then you maintain it. I know we'll talk about that tomorrow. But no one gets paid. You draw income out of the business from working it, right? Is that right?
Correct.
And then when in 2 years you refinance it, and then that's when everybody gets paid off down the line.
Not everybody. You're going to be able to draw down working capital. You're going to be able to draw down the line of credit to make some of the short and maybe a couple of the intermediate payments, but you're not going to be able to pay everybody on 100% seller finance because there's no money. There's no money. That's not to say, let's say you buy a 20 million euro deal and you hive off 7 million of the assets in the first 90 days because a lot of this shit you don't want. And after you've operated it for 6 weeks, then you don't want it even more. Okay? So then you have the ability to sell off assets. And then your broker buddy that you now have in your pocket, he will be on that shit like stink on shit. And I remember years ago, I didn't tell him that when we divest assets, he was going to get paid twice. I didn't tell him that. But it was surely implicit in our talks. So I acquiesced in the end, and so he collected too, okay? But that wasn't our deal to begin with. But he was so successful. He turned 60, 70% of his efforts toward us buying and divesting assets. And so he was like almost a full-time employee outside. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes, sir. You did.
Okay. Was there any other question? Yes, sir.
Once we get the numbers from all the sellers, the financials I'm talking about, we then have a board meeting.
The tax returns
and the financials, and then you pick the 2, 3 which you think are the
close. Yeah.
Then you go to the board, and then you discuss with the board.
Okay, we're going to talk about that.
The methodology, the 60-40, or is it seller?
Well, no. You're going to come with your recommendation as the financial genius that you are. Okay. So you don't just flop the shit up there like a bunch of diarrhea on the table and let everybody decide what the fuck to do with it. You've got an idea based on our model, okay? Because they will follow your lead, okay? Now, your first board meeting should not be must not be until you got something to talk about. As Costa Gracias used to tell me, we don't argue over who gets what on the cake until we baked it. Okay? So now I like 5 LOIs. I like 5 deals on the table. You bring to the board. You give them 2 weeks notice. You send out a board agenda. We're going to Kat, will you hand me that board thing? You know, the one with the old picture of the old man on it? Okay. Hand it to me, please. Okay. This is the best board document I've seen in my 50-year career. You're going to get it on the thumb drive. The only thing that could be better if that picture was me, but it's not. Some old git that does adverts on television. This is what you send out to the board. Guess who put it together? Andreas Milner. Okay. So you send out this, and it's got the agenda in it. It's got the 5 LOI deals in it, the rates of return, and all the bullshit that I don't want to know about, but your board members should know about. Okay, so they get this. You give them 2 weeks notice, actually 10 working days notice, and then the board meeting is, let's say, Friday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like last Friday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the board members will be requested to come in because now, although probably out of 8 board members, maybe 1 or 2 won't be able to make it, so they'll be zoomed in. As Andres alluded to on his presentation an hour or so ago, or 2 or 3 hours ago, he then meets with each board member individually. The U meets with each board member individually to go through, are there any questions, page by page, print it out. Now, they do it on tablets and shit like that, but I mean, I like paper. Print it out. And this is the board agenda, and this is what we're going to vote on. Do you have any problems with any of these things? Go one by one. They say, no, some would say, some will correct spelling and shit like that. In England, they correct spelling in dangling participle or a split infinitive, and most people don't even know what that shit means anymore. But for a while, I missed that, so we'll change that. And then you might have a dinner. I don't like dinners before board meetings because I don't want them getting loose-lipped before the fucking meeting. But because they're flying in, now if you're in the UK and everybody's in the UK, they may fly in the morning of the board meeting because the board meeting is not till after lunch. So then you meet with your chairman and for breakfast or for dinner, you can have dinner with them, and you say you've gone through everything and everybody agrees except one guy said that he wanted this changed, and so you change it. So then you make sure the lawyers are changing it. So the new printed off-the-press documents that are sitting on their table. When they sit down, a nice little leather folder or pretend leather, because real leather costs money, some Serbian cheap fuck knockoff you have there, and it has all the documents you're going to sign, it has the agenda, etc. And at the board meeting, you should have your full board, or as many of them as you can get there, and you're going to have your outhouse lawyers and your outhouse accountants. Not for the whole board meeting, but they're going to give presentation during the board meeting. Okay? How smart they are and how they've done such and such and such and such. At that board meeting is when the company is actually formed. So simultaneously, while they're giving the presentation, the notaries in some countries that have to be there are doing all the paperwork and issuing the shares. Free founders equity. So when the hammer slams, when that board meeting closes, and you're going to have a chairman, and one of the first things you say, gentlemen, ladies, we're not following Robert's rules. It's really important. Robert's rules is the Bible of board meetings. We will not be following Robert's rules. Otherwise, you'd be there 4 weeks. I mean, okay? We're not following. Everybody except you knows what that means. So, oh, God. That's why these board meetings at British Petroleum are 3 days or longer, because they're following Robert's rules. Okay? But you're not following Robert's rules. And the meeting should be like from 2 to 5. 2 to 5, or 2:30 to 5:30. After the meeting's over and you close the meeting, you're going to appoint a chairman, and you'll run the meeting, and the chairman will turn over and this is all in the template. will turn over the meeting to you. And then the CFO will have a presentation. The operations guy or gal will have a presentation. If you have a human resource person, he'll have a presentation. And you'll do, not flip charts, PowerPoint. This will be on a PowerPoint. And then at the end, you'll vote. And then you meet for drinks. You give them about an hour. These guys are old gits. Give them an hour to, go get themselves ready. And then you meet for drinks and dinner. And now you're paying for dinner, so remember. I mean, even though you may like 3 Michelin-star food, but when you multiply that times 10 people, that costs a lot of money. So I would recommend you I'm not talking about Burger King either, but I mean something you can afford because you're paying for it. And the company has no money yet. So when the bill comes, it's your bill. Okay. That's why I was teasing the Goomba brothers, and I said, "You still do McDonald's?" He said, "No, we're doing Chili's now." Chili's is kind of a franchise, one step up of McDonald's. And then you go and you have your dinner. Now, during the meeting, everybody at the first meeting, the board members will introduce themselves. I'm so and so. I'm so and so, and this will be the first time they meet. They're not going to, we had a board meeting in Pittsburgh years ago. 2 guys that went to law school together. They were roommates at law school. They hated each other. We didn't know it. Nobody mentioned it to us. And if it wasn't for Sally, who joined that meeting, I forget what reason she did, who sat between them, I mean, we were going to have a fist fight. I mean, and then the drinks were short after dinner. Instead of, a couple hours of drinks, drinks were like 10 minutes because we didn't want them to get too aggressive towards one another. These guys are coming to the board meetings on their own, nickel. We're not paying for them. They're not bringing their wives. When I'm the chairman, I always bring Sally. And then you got your first board meeting under the belt, and the shares have been issued on a tax-free basis because it's free. At the time, because we haven't bought anything yet. One of the things that you're going to vote on is it all right? The board will approve you and the CFO and the CEO, if you're not CEO, to go and get these deals closed. And they'll give you parameters, what you can pay on there's no lows end, but what you can pay on the high end. And normally we'll stick to our 3 to 5 times EBITDA. And you'll go out there and get them closed. Now, nobody's drawn a salary up to now. Okay? And that's why Andres had a full-time job, and our CFO at that time had a full-time job. They didn't start drawing money out of the company until we had made 3 or 4 acquisitions and we were cash flowing. And after 25 acquisitions, now the board makes money. But in the beginning, and they pay for themselves. And so, and when you're recruiting these dream team, if they're asking about expenses, we'll pay expenses when we cash flow. Now, a couple of the guys, I wouldn't do it this way. We'll make up for your expenses when we're cash flowing. In other words, if for a year and a half they pay for themselves to get there, I don't do that. Okay. But the you want to be liked. It's only a couple thousand fucking euro. Who gives a shit? But a couple thousand euros to somebody means something. So we're recommending you tell them you'll catch up and pay all their expenses up to when we cash flow. I don't do that. But some of the younger guys want to be loved. Yeah, in the back.
If one follow-up question from earlier, you kick the payment down, you do the deal. Do you have tax implications?
You kick what down?
Like you paying people out down.
Oh yeah,
down the line, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
So, but at the end of that calendar year, do you have tax implications? Do you have to pay taxes on that deal?
Well, no, it depends what kind of deal you did. I mean, buying something, there's no tax. I buy a company for $100 million. There's no tax on that. Now, remember, when you're buying companies that are in corporate entities, you're liable for the previous, current, and future liabilities. If you fucked up and your accountants didn't realize that they owed $1.7 million in taxes, the inland revenue or the revenue will be knocking on your fucking door. So, but you shouldn't have to pay tax. And tax settlement should be part of the deal. Meaning that it doesn't come with tax liabilities. Should be part of the deal. Now, if they fight a lot, that means they know something they're not telling you. If they fight a lot, they scream and kick, that means that they're in dispute. But part of the due diligence, you're going to get your own QLA due diligence list, in addition to the due diligence that the accountants do, and including the due diligence the lawyers do. Some of the buildings that have been part of my deals that were listed as assets for decades, when we did title search, they never owned them. But somebody fucked up in 1958. And then I asked, didn't anybody ever wonder why you never have to pay taxes on these fucking buildings? They always think, well, the Inland Revenue or the taxing authority made a mistake. Well, you didn't go to tell them about the mistake? They're not that honest, these guys. But all this team knows this. Okay, am I done, Kat? Okay. Now, while I'm thinking about it,